Okay, in this tutorial, we're going to look at playback in After Effects or previewing. I'm going to hit spacebar, and you might find that with all the stuff we've done so far, it's starting to play back pretty slowly. So you can see it's trying to keep up and trying to redraw it, but it just can't keep up anymore. So the easy things to do is, in a previous tutorial, I changed this. I have a habit of doing it. Don't do this. Okay, this changes the output of the actual comp when you export. In some instances, most of the time it doesn't. Okay, so leave it set to auto, and what we're gonna do is open up your preview window. Okay, window preview if you can't find it. Okay, and what we wanna do is change the resolution of the preview, okay, not the exported comp, down to a quarter. And what you'll find is, okay, I'll hit spacebar. Okay, and it does a really good job of just kind of like lower resolution, so it's not pretty. Okay, so you might find a resolution that works for half or third or a quarter, okay, but it plays back nice and fast. Yeah, it's working good. Okay, so that's the big one to get you going. Okay, and the other thing you can do is your disk cache. So under After Effects Preferences, Media and Disk Cache on a Mac. If you're on a PC, it's under Edit, and it's down the bottom here under Preferences. Okay, and you're looking for the same one called Media and Disk Cache. And in here, what ends up happening is when you're previewing, okay, what happens is After Effects stores that preview somewhere, and it stores it in the disk cache. My settings here are set to 93 gigabytes. So I'm telling After Effects, take 93 gigabytes of my hard drive to store all of your previews. Now, if you're working on a computer that has very limited storage, okay, what you'll find is After Effects is filling up your hard drive with this kind of temporary files. And what you can do is empty disk cache. Okay, mine's only got 2.2 gigabytes in here because I cleaned it out about 5 minutes ago. Okay, and I'm going to click OK and go to the one that says clean database and cache as well. Now, hopefully you'll notice a difference in playback, especially if your hard drive is nearly full. Okay, it'll clear off loads of room. And what you might say is actually you can't have 93 gigabytes. You can have, like, what have you got left? If you've got 10 megabytes left on your hard drive, give it 5. Okay, the only problem is the previews are not going to be very long. Okay, it's going to have to redraw it every time you hit spacebar. Okay, so what causes the really bad playback? You'll notice at the beginning of this course, it was running super smooth. But what's happened now is probably the biggest thing for us is we've added a camera and we've made all these objects 3D. There's a lot of the calculations that have to go into it now. Okay, the other thing is motion blur. I've added to all the layers. That takes lots of memory to get going. If you've enabled any of this vector redrawing, that can take a lot of memory. If you're using live action video, okay, we're just using static stuff here. Okay, it all takes a toll on the poor old machine. Another easy one is to close down any other programs. We've been using Illustrator quite a bit through this course, so close that down and just open it up when you need to. So go through and close down anything non-essential. The other things you can do is over here, okay, in our preview panel, this one here is probably the next best one, is skip. Okay, at the moment it's trying to render every frame for you. So I'm going to stick it up to not quarter, maybe about half. So it's going to render, watch. It's not quite keeping up, okay, it's a bit too slow. So what we can say is skip every second frame, please. Okay, and what it's going to do, it's going to be a little bit jumpier. Okay, but it's going to do its best to kind of render every second one. So it's going to be a little bit jumpy, tiny bit. I find it's hard to notice. Let's skip out 5 just so we can exaggerate this a bit. I never go to 5, but what I want to show you, you can see it's keeping up a lot better. It's actually keeping up fine now. Okay, so it's just rendering every 5th frame instead of every frame. Okay, so it's not going to affect the output. So I'm going to turn mine back to 0. And yeah, it's going to look fine. The problem is if you change it here, every time you come back in here, it's going to be this crappy resolution. And you might be like, oh, what's wrong? And you start playing around with the vector redraw, and it's actually just turned the resolution down here to half. So remember what you've done. Okay, 2 more items to cover. One is what you can do if you've got a laptop and it's just not running very well, is if you just want to upgrade your machine, often the easiest and cheapest and best things you can do are RAM. Okay, if you've got a machine and it's got 4 gigs of RAM, After Effects is pretty much not going to work. But check. Often laptops can be upgraded, especially PCs, okay, and you can install more RAM. It's really cheap, it's easy to do, lots of centers will do it. I've done it myself, and I'm not much of a computer nerd when it comes to hardware. Okay, you can check how much you've got, okay, by going up to Preferences. So remember, on a PC it's under Edit, Preferences, and then go into Media and Disk Cache. Actually, no, you want to go, no, there it is, no, under Memory. Where are you? Memory. In here, I have 16 gigs of RAM, okay, in my MacBook Pro, and I'm allowing After Effects to use 11 of it. If yours says it's got installed RAM of 8, you are at the bare minimum. If you've got 4, life is going to be tough for doing animation. Okay, and if you've got a bigger computer and got 32 or 64 or any sort of chunky number, I envy you. Okay, 16 is the biggest I could get in this MacBook Pro that I just bought. So, hey ho, let's click OK. The last thing we're going to look at is doing our little preview. So, like, say we're going to preview it, and this is more just general previewing. I'm going to turn it down from half down to quarter so it actually previews. So I'm going to start playing. But say I'm just playing with that transition there. So I want to go back, play it, go back, play it. Okay, so instead of doing that, what you can do is this little bar on the top is called the work area. And there's a beginning of it and an end of it. If you can't see them, okay, we're going to zoom all the way out by hitting the colon key on your keyboard. It's next to L. Okay, tap it once and you go all the way in, tap it again, and it comes all the way out. So we've zoomed all the way out. Okay, so I can see the beginning and the end. What I'm going to do is I'm going to say I just want to look at this transition here. I'm going to bring this to there. And as long as my playhead starts anywhere inside of here, watch what happens when I hit spacebar. I've got nothing on the keyboard now and just loops in there. So that's really handy instead of having to go back to the beginning, loop it all the way through, or be dragging the playhead back and forth. This little work area can be useful. Can be a bit of a pain now as well. If you want to get rid of it, just double click it in the middle. The work area expands out and we're back to normal. All right, that is how to try and speed poor old After Effects up if it's struggling.